Hey guys, Chef Melissa here. Welcome to our virtual product demonstration here in the culinary scene. I'm going to be talking about all of the fabulous Wolf appliances and how wonderful these can make your Thanksgiving this year. This is a really fun product demonstration because it is right before Thanksgiving, so this is the time, let's be honest, when everyone actually really wants to cook. Everyone here is going to want to listen close. Everyone wants new recipes. Everyone wants to know, okay, how do I actually use my appliances? How am I going to really make this turkey really good for the family? Because let's be honest, turkey is usually the last thing everybody wants. So I'm going to be talking through all of these things using our burners, using our induction, our wall ovens, our steam oven, and our griddle. So I'm going to showcase so many of these fabulous appliances, whatever you guys have at home. And also you'll be able to see kind of how you can utilize these recipes no matter what appliances you have. So to get started, because we got a lot of fun things to go through, I'm starting with just a good old-fashioned gas burner. Now, the Wolf burners aren't exactly old-fashioned. They are phenomenal and extremely high-end. They give us everything from the highest of high temperatures to the lowest of low temperatures. Every single Wolf burner has this capability. Today, I'm just going to go ahead and I'm going to use a nice medium heat here because we are starting with a dish that is going to be lemony green beans with frizzled leeks. A really fun name to serve for your Thanksgiving dinner, and I'm going to show you what we do. So I've got a really nice cup and a half of olive oil here that I'm going to dump right into the pan, and we're going to utilize this now. It's just slightly warm. And then I've got these beautiful leeks that have been really, really thinly sliced. We've got these in about 4-inch strips, which makes really nice, snacky pieces of onion. And we're basically going to fry these. So I'm going to let these go right into that oil before it preheats, because I like letting this go kind of and start to cook in that oil before the oil gets hot, so it comes up to temperature with the oil. So the green beans are going to actually, or these leeks are going to end up being really beautifully crispy and browned, and it's kind of like the better Funyun. That's what we're making here. So this is my play on a green bean casserole. So a lot lighter, a lot fresher, which is really nice for Thanksgiving. We're used to a lot of heavy food that's all the same color, browns and creams, and kind of the same texture. This really elevates and brings this just to a whole new ball game. So with this, it's really nice using these burners. I have the ability to really control this heat. So I'm starting to turn it up now that I've got my leeks in there. And then really, I just let these kind of do their thing for the next 5 or so minutes. It ends up happening quickly. As soon as they start to brown, they brown quick. So I'm just going to let these go, and I'm tossing them around so that the olive oil is coating each and every single little strand here. If you're utilizing leeks for the first time, then I would advise you, they are the dirtiest of the onion family. And so it's really, really important to wash out the grime and the dirt that gets in between the layers of the leeks. So you can slice them in half and then kind of get the water in between and really wash that out. If you can't find leeks where you are, it's also okay to use shallots. Another really good kind of mild onion that's going to give you that fried onion flavor, but it's going to be mild enough and small enough that it'll get really, really beautifully crispy. So while I let these go, I'm actually going to go ahead and jump to talking about our wall oven. This is our electric wall oven. This is showcasing an E-series, but what I'm going to talk about works whether it's an E-series or an M-series, even if you had just a convection steam oven, because we're going to be talking about the convection mode, okay? So what I've got is I could not do a Thanksgiving class without showcasing a pumpkin pie. So we've got here a pumpkin pie that if anyone here has ever made a pumpkin pie, not just bought it from Costco, which I'm very supportive of, but if you want to actually make your pumpkin pie this year, and hopefully make something that people actually want to eat, because I think pumpkin pie is one of those, really, it's either a hit or miss. People love pumpkin pie or they hate pumpkin pie. So I'm going to talk through a little bit what I did here, and then how important the oven is in baking this, and then my refrigerator, my Sub-Zero, where you're going to need to chill this for at least an hour. And because I have that Sub-Zero, I don't need to cover this with plastic wrap. I can put it right in, and I'm not at all worried about any other odors or flavors getting into my pumpkin pie and messing up that flavor because I have that fabulous Sub-Zero. So it's a really, really great way and a really great time in your life to make a pumpkin pie. So what I did for this is, of course, there's the classic pie crust with the pumpkin filling that's usually just eggs and maybe sugar, some cream. I've seen sweetened condensed milk and the pumpkin filling. It should be pumpkin puree, not pumpkin pie filling, because that'll completely change the flavor, and it's got quite a bit of a fake situation going on. And then people add their pumpkin pie spice. And I'm going to talk about why I don't like pumpkin pie spice and why I don't like the other pumpkin pies. So all we did here to elevate, we've got pumpkin puree. We've got eggs, essential for making a custard base. That egg is what's going to hold the pumpkin pie together. But then I add a little bit of sour cream. So we're actually going to add this sort of tang. And people are going to taste this and not think, wow, that tastes like sour cream. You're going to taste it and think, what is that? That's got a little bit something different. It's got a little bit of pow to it. And then instead of sweetening it with sugar or sweetened condensed milk, I utilize maple syrup. So it's quite a bit richer and has a deeper sort of smoky flavor. A really good maple syrup in there is how we're going to sweeten the entire pie. And then a couple splashes of bourbon, because that's going to also bring a little something extra to our pie, as I'm sure you don't need me to tell you. But then the other important factor here is we are making our own pumpkin pie spice. And that really, anyone can do it. You don't just have to buy pumpkin pie spice. You can decide which of the flavors of pumpkin pie spice do you like the best. More cinnamon? Extra nutmeg? Are you really a fan of that ginger flavor with the pumpkin? So you can take the spices that you love and you can add a little bit more of the flavor that you want to be predominant there. I love cinnamon and I love nutmeg and ginger. So those are my favorite spices to really elevate with pumpkin pie. Of course, there's allspice as well that you can add. And you've got your own much more flavorful pumpkin pie spice flavoring. Of course, a little salt. And then that goes right onto our crust, which instead of a regular pie crust, we've got a beautiful mixture of ginger snap and graham cracker crust, which I think most people really love that crust instead of going with the classic pie crust, which is beautiful and has its place in the world. But with a pumpkin pie, I find that I really enjoy that little bit of a sweeter, more textural experience, because you've got custardy and that really crunchy, streusely situation happening. And then we bake it. And this is where that oven, that all-important oven, comes into play. So in your oven, you've got to be, it's a custard, but it's quite, it's a bit sturdier of a custard than your classic cream, milk, and eggs. And so I actually am able to bake this without a water bath, and it can go right into the oven. I put it on a sheet tray, and I like to place this right in the center of the oven, center of that where the heat is going to be most even and most balanced out. And what I'll do there then is I'm going to utilize the convection mode, but I'm going to turn that temperature down. So we've got it at 325 degrees because our convection, it's truly much more powerful and it really does cook hotter and faster. We've got this dual convection oven, so you've got two fans in the back of the oven, not one, but two. And on top of that, it's true convection. So the heating elements are actually directly in front of those fans. When those fans are there, what that means is as the heat starts going, the fans turn on because we're using straight convection, and that is going to blow our heat out much, much more evenly. I'm not going to have any top to bottom discrepancy. I don't have to worry that when I've got my pie in, I'm going to have to check it. Is the top getting too browned? Is the bottom browned enough? I know that it's going to give me this really even heat all throughout the oven. And that fan, that moving air, is actually going to cook this quite a bit quicker and more efficiently and more evenly. So I think the hardest part about pumpkin pie, beyond making a good filling, is actually knowing when it's done. And I find with convection, it cooks better because it's getting through to that center part of the pie much quicker. And the problem is with pumpkin pie, usually you get it cooking, from the outside in, and it goes really slow. And so by the time that center is perfectly set, the outside is just too overcooked and dry. By utilizing the convection mode, it cooks quicker and you get a much more even edge-to-edge custardy filling. So this usually would take about an hour, and it only took about 40 to 45 minutes with our convection oven. And what you'll do is pretend the pie's still in here. When it's baking, you should be able to jiggle the pan. Remember, we put it onto a sheet pan to bake. Jiggle that pan, and the center of that pie should still have a little bit of a wobble. We don't want it really moving back and forth, because then that means the custard didn't set. But if you've got that little bit of a jiggle, that is the perfectly cooked pumpkin pie. Then you pull it out, and you're able to let it cool for a moment before putting it right into your Sub-Zero, where it is able to chill and set completely. So that's our pumpkin pie. Of course, we will serve it with some beautiful whipped cream at the end, but I wanted to talk you guys through that and through our fabulous oven. So now we're looking really great on these leeks that are starting to crisp up beautifully. You can see they've softened down, and we're starting to get the nice browning that I'm seeing here, if you guys can see that gorgeous browning. So I'm just waiting for this to even out everywhere, okay? Once they start browning, you'll see it actually is going to happen fairly quickly, that they will all get really browned. Now, here, remember how we talked through the burners and how beautiful and even and how much control you have over the heat here? If you've decided, that's really bubbling away, I think some of the onions are cooking too fast, that's where you can turn this down. And if you're really worried, what's amazing about our Wolf burners is you can turn it so far down, you push in on your burner and then keep turning, you will get a lower profile burner. Truly, these are dual stacked burners. Wolf likes to do everything in twos. Dual convection, dual compressor, dual stacked burner. So what that means is you've got the normal flame on top, that's the higher, more powerful flame. And even when you go to low, sometimes it's just too hot. And if that's the case, well, push down on your knob, keep turning, and you'll actually get a lower profile. So you've got the top flame, and that will turn off, and you'll get the bottom flame. And that way, the flame is so much more easy to control, and it can truly go so low. If you use your smallest burner, it can literally melt chocolate directly in the pan, which is remarkable because you can never melt chocolate directly in the pan, but our burners have that much control. So that's what I really like to talk about and showcase here. As these are finishing up cooking, I'm actually going to get ready to we need this oil. So once these are done, we'll pull our leeks out, and once they start sitting, here I've got a little plate just to pull out the leeks. I can pull out some of those beautiful browned ones. As they sit, the longer they sit, the crispier they're going to get and give you that sort of Funyun situation that we talked about. It's a fancy Funyun. Who doesn't love a Funyun? And I'm just stirring these continually to make sure, because the leeks like to kind of stack up on top of each other, so I'm trying to even them out here, making sure that they all brown nice and evenly. And while this is going, I'm not going anywhere too far so I can keep my eye on this. This is not something you want to walk away from. Not something that you're like, okay, I've got a million things to do on Thanksgiving, so I'm going to walk away from this pan. These can go from just green and raw to burned in a hot second, and you won't even know. So don't walk too far away from these. You can even make these the day in advance. Same with that pumpkin pie. As much as you can get done beforehand, your Thanksgiving day is going to be so much easier. So while that's finishing, I'm going to talk about the second part of this green bean dish, and that's the green beans. So what we've got, these are perfectly, beautifully blanched green beans. A perfectly blanched green bean is a delight on its own. The texture should still have a little bit of crispness to it. They should turn bright green instead of that dull grayish brownish green, which means you've overcooked it. And they should still stand pretty straight at attention. They shouldn't wonk down. Nobody wants that. So that's a perfectly blanched green bean in really nice salty water, so you flavor those beans from the inside out. But a blanched green bean is delicious. Trust me, I love it. But you want to do something, you want to elevate it a bit when we're talking about Thanksgiving. And so that's what we're going to do here. We're going to utilize our induction now, because I really, really love doing this dish on the induction for a few reasons. Our induction, just like our gas burners, has extremely great temperature control. And so you can go from the high of high temperatures to the low of low temperatures. And it happens, unlike with gas, which is our gas is quite responsive. The induction is literally immediate. You will get a boiling temperature much, much quicker than you will with a gas, because the way the induction is working is it's actually utilizing the pan itself as the heating source. The pan. So instead of going, okay, the gas is heating, and the gas will then heat the pan, and then the pan will then heat the food, we're cutting out the middleman, and we're just going, the induction is going straight to the pan. So the pan is the heating source, which will then heat the food. So it happens so much quicker, and what that means is the temperature will be exactly what you want, exactly when you want. So you can go from boiling to simmering with a snap of your finger. Well, not exactly a snap of your finger, it's not that magic, just by adjusting your burner, and then you've got it, okay? So that was perfect timing. I've just started preheating our pan on the induction, which is already warm, and I wanted to get the rest of our leeks out there. And then I've got to show you, anytime you're doing something like this where you're frying, you want to give that a nice, good dosing of salt, because think about, you want crispy and salty and oniony. So these are going to be a lot of the flavor addition that we add to our green beans. These are what make the green beans special. Even people who don't like green beans will like these because the onions. So now, remember that oil? I told you we had to get that oil done. I'm going to go ahead and I'm going to dump about half of that right into my induction pan, because that's now going to be my leek-flavored oil that will flavor my green beans. And I do want this hot, which is why now I'm going to turn it up, and it'll heat up very quickly. Because I don't want to cook these beans really anymore, I just want to give them some beautiful flavor and warm them through. So if this were Thanksgiving Day, you could actually blanch your green beans the day before, and then right before it's time to eat, you could warm them up here with that leek oil. And remember, you can make the leek oil in advance as well. So you've got that, put it into a dish to save for later, set your green beans in the fridge, and then the day of, pull them out of the fridge and warm them with that oil. So I'm just giving these a nice toss. And then we're going to do this in batches because we had a lot of green beans here. And I'm going to add about half, maybe a little less than half of the lemon zest, because I don't want the lemon zest to really cook in the oil, in the hot oil here, because we'll lose that beautiful fresh flavor. So I'm just setting that lemon zest on top and letting it start to perfume. The second it hits those warm green beans, it just kind of hits you in the nose, and it's fantastic. So now, giving this another toss, but our beans are pretty much ready, this first batch. And then I can take these, and I'm going to go right onto our serving dish. The other fabulous thing about this dish is this is fantastic at room temperature or hot right off the pan. And that's another thing you really, if you can, think about. For Thanksgiving, what is going to taste good at room temperature? Because you've got so many dishes going on. The more food that tastes good at room temperature, the easier your life is going to be again. So here we go. These beautiful beans, and you've just got that light smell of that lemon zest, so perfumey. It's fantastic. And we're going to take the rest of these green beans, toss them right in. and let those warm through. And again, what's really nice here is they're being flavored with the oil that has that oniony tinge to it and with the lemon. So I've got that here, and I've given these again a little more salt because I like to make sure that these are seasoned from the start when you blanch all the way to the end when you warm them in the oil. And I should mention with the blanching, which I also like to do here on the induction because you get that boiling water so quickly. But when you're blanching green beans, you really, really need to make sure that the second you pull them out of that hot boiling water, they go directly into an ice bath. And what that means is cold water, and so we call it an ice bath because that cold water is going to stop the cooking immediately of those green beans or whatever food you're blanching. And then once you dunk that in that ice water, you'll retain that bright green color and that crisp, tender texture, and then you can put them in the fridge to wait until tomorrow or even 2 days in advance. So these look great. I'm simply adding a little more of that lemon zest, and I save a little bit to put on top of our dish at the end. But these are looking fabulous. And then I didn't want to add the lemon juice until I'd done my second batch, but we're going to add quite a bit of lemon juice here because this is really going to add a level of acidity and freshness and brightness, and that is what we want here. Thanksgiving can just be really heavy, like I said before, and so anytime you can add a level of brightness and punchiness, I think you should really take advantage of that. Now, my apron has fallen off, so I'm just going to go ahead and let that go off and put that aside. Okay, we've got, luckily that's what a chef's coat is for. I'll be totally fine. So now I'm going to go ahead, just giving these a little toss in that lemon juice, and I've got that boiling, kind of bubbling lemon juice leek oil mixture, and we'll take all of that. Perfectly done. And you'll just go ahead and you'll plate this up, again, right when it's time to eat if you want it hot, and you can put someone on this job. You saw how quick that was to rewarm these beans, maybe 5-6 minutes total. But I really like to stack this high. Food presentation at Thanksgiving, it's also pretty important. If you guys do really big family, all get together and it's kind of a potluck, or maybe it's not a potluck, but you've got big platters of food because with large groups, you're not plating those up individually. You want the food to look pretty or people aren't going to want to eat it. And those are going to be left over for a long time. Here, this is something that someone would really want to eat. So we've got a big stack of these green beans, and then we're going to take those gorgeous frizzled leeks, which, can you guys hear how crispy that is? I don't know if you can hear that, but it's so crispy. These are like the yummiest little snack. That's the only danger with these. Make sure that when you make them, you don't have any little snackers around, because they'll eat all of these before Thanksgiving comes. And I like to just sort of stack some of those crispy leeks right over the top, make it really nice and pretty, and then serve the rest on the side so that people can add as much as they want. That's going to be our lemony green beans with frizzled leeks. And then we're going to go ahead and we're going to move over to talking about our griddle and our steam oven. So I'm going to move on over here. Okay, we've moved on. Now we're in a different set of the kitchen, which this might be someone else's kitchen setup, where they've got a steam oven and they've got a griddle. And so I'm going to talk about the steam oven first, and then we're going to go ahead and we're going to talk about the griddle. Our convection steam oven. This is very important because I think our convection steam oven might be one of the most important appliances on Thanksgiving Day. And that is because the main event, which has just finished cooking, so you can see all that beautiful steam coming out, the main event should be cooked in your convection steam oven. This is going to make your, and thank you. If you couldn't tell everyone, I'm pregnant here. So Gil is helping me because I'm not supposed to lift heavy things. And that's why my apron fell off, and he's pulling this beautiful turkey out so you guys can see how beautiful and browned and crispy that has gotten. Thank you so much. This skin is crispy and browned. It smells phenomenal, and the meat is cooked perfectly. And yes, I haven't tasted it yet, but I've made this turkey many times. I've probably made a minimum of 25 turkeys in a convection steam oven, and every single time, I can guarantee and count on the fact that it's going to come out perfectly. Not to brag, because really this doesn't have anything to do with me, but the number of people I've had say, that is the best roast turkey I've ever had, I'm not the only one. It's anyone who roasts their turkey in a convection steam oven. I promise you your guests will say, that's the best roast turkey I've ever had. It's not even anything I really did. So now I'm going to talk you through the turkey and how we utilize this convection steam oven to make the best roast turkey. And this is the part, let's be honest, there's a reason that people only eat turkey once a year. No one really likes it. And that's mostly because no one really knows how to cook it. So I'm going to talk you through how to cook it and the steps before cooking it that are pretty important to making that turkey good. Step number 1, dry brine. I like to season this generously with salt 2 days before. Minimum 1 day before. Salt and a little bit of brown sugar, that's a dry brine. I don't get a big bucket of water, I don't have time to deal with that. The whole thing, salted aggressively, and again, this is another really important area where the Sub-Zero comes in. Because I'm gonna put this into my Sub-Zero uncovered, and I don't have to worry about a thing. And what's gonna happen is that salt is gonna penetrate and season that turkey all the way through while pushing water out, so it's really concentrating the flavor. And as the water's pushed out, it's in our fridge, uncovered, which means that water is gonna start to evaporate. That's why we're giving it a full 2 days, 1 to 2 days. So then when you pull it out, you'll see that it looks a little different. It looks tight, the skin is tightened up. It looks a little bit like it's been dried out, and that's what you want. So then you'll take it and you can use whatever flavoring you like to do on your turkey. Do you like a compound butter? Do you like doing a glaze with some sort of maple syrup or sugar or something? Or do you like what I've done here? My favorite ingredient for Thanksgiving is mayonnaise, probably. I love mayonnaise. And we're making a garlic, herb, citrus zest aioli to rub and slather all over that bird. So that's what we do. We take that and we get under the skin, over the skin, all over, and it's going to really add tons of flavor and browning and moisture and fat that this turkey really, really wants. And then you'll take that and it goes into your steam oven. Okay, so this is where now we're talking about what really matters. This oven is the game changer when it comes to the turkey. So we're gonna kind of walk through what I did on our steam oven. Probably the most important part is this probe. Your steam oven will come with a probe thermometer that inserts itself directly into the oven. It's right on this side, there's a little flap, and you'll flick that flap open, that was a tongue twister, and you're gonna put this nice little short stubby side in, and you need to make sure it's all the way inserted. This long skinny side, that is what is gonna go into your food, and you really want to insert it so that it's into the deepest part of your food. And this is the other important part, the whole thing needs to be covered. If any part of this probe is showing in the oven will not be able to read if it's the temperature of the turkey or the temperature of the oven. So make sure the whole thing is completely covered, okay? Once you've got that in, and you can put this into the oven, you know that your turkey is gonna be cooked to the exact right temperature. No more of that Thanksgiving drama where the turkey's not done, it's still bloody on the inside, all the other food's ready, how are we gonna wait for the turkey? Or the opposite, oh wow, I really overcooked this turkey, so now it's dry as shoe leather, and you have to basically dunk it in gravy just to be able to swallow it. This is going to avoid that problem. So this, I like to set my internal probe to 160 degrees. From there, you'll pull it out and you will let it rest. We like to let it rest, truthfully, a turkey this big, this is 20 pounds. I would let this rest for no less than 45 minutes to allow all those hot juices to really calm down. And that way, when you cut into it to carve, you're not gonna lose all those juices all over the board. And trust me, I know you're like 45 minutes, but guess what? A turkey this big holds its heat. This will still be hot when you cut into it in 45 minutes or an hour, okay? So the mode, that's again, now we're talking which mode to use on your steam oven. If you have a steam oven and you haven't even used it yet, but you're like, I'm gonna use this for Thanksgiving, I do have a few clients who've done that, and they weren't fortunate enough to have a YouTube video to watch, or they just didn't know there was this wonderful YouTube video to watch and give them instruction. And there's a lot of options, a lot of modes in our convection steam oven. So they turn their steam oven on, and the first mode that comes up is steam. And they thought, I guess we'll just steam it. That's not gonna make a very good turkey. That's not gonna make any flavor or browning that you would think when you think roast turkey. The mode that you guys are gonna wanna use is actually the convection steam mode. This is the magical mode of the convection steam oven, what it's basically named for. We are gonna utilize the power of steam and high heat. And what makes that so wonderful is the steam is gonna really penetrate the food and cook so much quicker than still air. Remember we talked about convection, that moving air cooks quicker than still air. Well, steam cooks even faster than convection. But now we've got that steam, it's gonna sort of keep the moisture in the bird, but it's also gonna cook so much faster, which is gonna preserve nutrients, it's gonna preserve flavor and texture, but also now we can add browning through that convection side, that high heat. Because look at how browned and burnished this bird got. So, so brown, so, so flavorful. That's where the flavor comes from. So I actually do convection steam, and I start it pretty high, probably higher than most people would. I go 375 because I really want to get that gorgeous brown skin, give it a nice golden tan. And then if I look at it and we're looking nice and browned when it's getting closer to being done, I turn the temperature down to 325 to finish cooking. But that high heat gives us the browning and the crisping of the skin, while the steam gives us the perfect cooking. It's literally the perfect marriage, steam and convection. And you'll end up with the perfect roast turkey. And when it's not just Thanksgiving, you can cook roast chickens. You can make beautiful, crispy, bubbly mac and cheese with crispy breadcrumb toppings. You can make the flakiest, tender biscuits with a nice browned top, all with that power of steam and high heat. So that's our convection steam mode. That's what we utilized here for our turkey. And I think hopefully you guys listened well, because that's probably the most important thing that I'm going to talk about today. If you want to move that, Gil's going to move that again for me so we can move along to our next dish. If anyone out there has questions, please put them into the chat box. We've got someone ready to shout them out to me, and I can answer for you guys. But maybe I'm just really, really good at teaching, so there's no questions even needed. Okay, so that's our convection steam oven, a fabulous, fabulous appliance, something I really hope you have for Thanksgiving, because it's life-changing. But now we're going to focus on our griddle. So this is a really, really fun dish that I'm showcasing right now. But if you don't have the griddle, I don't want you to feel like you can't make this, because you could totally use a pan. If you have the induction, you can utilize a pan on the induction, and you'll just be able to do less of the sweet potatoes at one time, where I have this whole cooking surface to work with, which is what makes it so nice to do this specific dish with. But please don't feel like if you don't have a griddle, you can't do what I'm talking about. It's just not quite as easy. So this griddle is something that I adore, truly. Double griddle. You can have a single griddle, which also works just as well, but you can also have this double griddle, which just gives you all the more space to cook massive amounts of food and not have to worry about where your food is. I love having space, just tons of lanes to work with, okay? Our griddle is the most even, perfect cooking surface that we have, hands down. This is edge to edge to edge to edge to corner, perfectly even heat. I have no hot and cold spots. I know that everywhere on this griddle is going to be cooking the same. It's going to give me the same browning, the same cooking time at every place. Here, you actually can adjust your temperature to exactly what you want, which means if you want to do a perfect grilled cheese sandwich, then you can have it at a nice 350 degrees, 325, 350 degrees. If you want to brown up some sweet potatoes, you can turn that up to 400. If you want to saute some vegetables, 450. If you want to sear some scallops, sear some steaks, 450. You can also even have each side at a different temperature. So you could have all your sweet potatoes going, while also on the other side, you could have some of those steaks going if you're having steaks and sweet potatoes, because you might have different temperatures for those. Now, as I keep talking about the griddle, I kind of want to get something cooking on it. So what I've got here, this is a really fun Thanksgiving dish. Again, something a little bit different, which I think is really nice for Thanksgiving, kind of changing up the classics a bit. I'm going to go ahead and get some olive oil on my griddle. This is already preheated. I'd say to get up to high temperatures, you need about 10 to 15 minutes. And then I'm going to grab some butter. And I like to use a combination of butter and olive oil here because you're going to get so much more even cooking. And the butter isn't going to burn. That olive oil is going to help it from burning. But then what we're going to do, these have already been cooked. These are steamed sweet potatoes. You can also boil them. And they turn out so nicely cooked and creamy on the inside. And you could slice them in half or have fun and just kind of smash them down like a nice giant smashed sweet potato. Such a fun way to eat these. So I'm gently smashing just so that they kind of hold together in their shape. But if they break apart, that's wonderful too. They'll still taste delicious. You just have a few more little pieces of sweet potato. So I'm taking these and I'm just placing them right onto that buttery olive oil. And now they're going to start getting super flavorful and caramelized. So I'm taking the power of steam, or if you wanted to boil them, absolutely, which is going to give me a custardy, beautifully flavored interior, beautifully textured interior. But let's be honest, brown food generally tastes better. That's where all of the flavor is, the Maillard reaction. That's where we're going to get the essence of what food is. Bring out the sugars in them, bring out the flavor. So I am now utilizing my griddle for that. And again, this is something you can make, boil the sweet potatoes in advance, and then you're going to go ahead and brown them the day of. So while I'm letting those start to kind of saute and get beautifully browned and golden and crispy, I'm actually going to take some cumin seeds here, and I'm just using a mortar and pestle to grind these up. I really like to take the whole seed. I don't like pre-ground spices. I find they have very little flavor and very little to give to a dish. When I use a spice, I want that spice to really come through. So I just use a mortar and pestle, really simple, to kind of just let that grind up. And this way I also get some bigger chunks of cumin and some really, really finely powdered up cumin, and so you get a lot of different texture and flavor there. But I'm going to go ahead and check on these. Look at that beautiful browning already. Just phenomenal. They got crispy. They got browned. That's so much flavor happening. And this is why I really love the griddle. There's no spot that I can't cook on. So I'm kind of just making sure they're all getting coated in that oil and butter. And now we're going to add the flavor here. So what I've got is that cumin. So now that I've just ground it up, I just like to sprinkle it over the top here. And that is going to gently start to warm through and toast my cumin seeds. And truly, cumin and sweet potato is such a beautiful combination. This is all the flavor that you really need here. Again, I'm salting both sides, seasoning every layer as I go. Season when you boil them, season then when you're cooking them. And now, and again, I just like to kind of swoosh these around to make sure I'm picking up all that salt or cumin that I may have flicked on the griddle and not onto the sweet potatoes. And now we're going to do the fun part. So I'm actually going to add a touch more oil just down around here. And now we add some maple syrup. So we're gonna candy these sweet potatoes. And this is important. Having this griddle, beyond the even cooking, which is phenomenal, it's also the most incredible material. It's cold rolled steel. And cold rolled steel is like, it will live probably longer than you will. It's impossible to destroy. And we have built up this seasoning. Over time, it gets better and better. You build up a patina. And once which we have here now, this beautiful black surface is nicely patinaed, so it's fairly non-stick. I can utilize this maple syrup. It's gonna get a bit sticky, but I'm gonna utilize my bench scraper here to just scrape off any sticky cooked on maple syrup before this cools down, and you will have no problems. So I'm gonna take this now, and I just like to drizzle over the top carefully, because we're gonna flip it and let these caramelize. This is a dish that people ask me for often. This is not just for Thanksgiving. So this is something that I personally, I really don't like the classic sweet potato dish of marshmallows and sugar and cream, and you've got the marshmallow topping just not my thing. Just really not into it. This is my take on a sweet dish for a sweet potato, but that has, I think, so many more elements of interest. Texturally, flavor-wise, it's not too sweet. That maple syrup, as I'm kind of tossing it around now and letting it caramelize onto those sweet potatoes, you're getting a completely different flavor. Even the smell in here, it's amazing. You end up getting this sort of smokiness because that maple syrup starts to brown, and so you get a smokiness and a richness and all this different flavor that you just can't get any other way. So that's gonna be our gorgeous, fun little sweet potato dish with our griddle. You guys can see now, just literally the way I'm cooking these, you can see why I love the double griddle so much, because there's no constraints. I can move these wherever I want, and I don't have anything to worry about. So I'm gonna take these beautifully, beautifully cooked and caramelized, and I take this, ooh, I love that one, and we're gonna throw it right onto our serving dish. And they get kind of sticky and sweet, but not too sweet. And I wanna show you what I was talking about. That maple syrup, which is, let's be honest, that's a sticky substance. It scrapes right off with no problems. And my griddle is pretty much clean. That's the beauty of the griddle. The cooking, the cleaning, all of that combined is gonna give you such a good experience in the kitchen. Don't wait to scrape that off if you've done something like maple syrup and we let this cool. That maple syrup is gonna stick to the griddle, but if you take care of it and clean it right away, no problems. Once this cools a bit more, I'm just gonna come back and get a cloth and kind of wipe that down. But these, oh, he left that burner. These are perfectly cooked, such a fun dish, a different way to serve sweet potatoes, a different way to serve the green beans. And your guests, I think, are gonna love that. So, that's our griddle, that's our steam oven. It seems like we still have no questions. So we're gonna end up showing you how we finish up this beautiful Thanksgiving meal. Oh, and here's my pumpkin pie. And I gotta show you guys, we've done this here in a tart pan instead of the classic pie pan, because this is it's really fun to pull the pumpkin pie, whoop, out of that tart and see those beautiful, beautiful layers. You can see the gorgeous, let's see if I can, we'll switch this hand. There we go. You can see that crust on the bottom, nice and crispy, and that nice pumpkin pie layer. And then, of course, we all know you cannot have pumpkin pie without the whipped cream. So I'm just gonna go ahead, and I'm a believer in a good loving amount of whipped cream. That's how I would serve my pumpkin pie. And then more on the side, of course. So this is our Thanksgiving meal with the virtual product demonstration. You've seen all of the appliances, how amazing they can elevate your dishes and make your Thanksgiving day hopefully a little bit easier and a little bit more successful. Thank you so much for joining us today. Again, my name is Chef Alyssa. If you have any questions at all, anything you want to comment or ask us later, this video will be on YouTube, on our YouTube channel, Roth Living. And you can go there, and if you leave a comment, we will always get back to you. You can always call our showrooms, and we'll answer all your questions. But we hope you have the best Thanksgiving holiday. Enjoy with your family. Enjoy all of the food. And please check out some more of our videos. We have these virtual events going on all of the time. Thank you so much.